Good morning. It's time for another garden tour. Not a lot has changed since the last actual garden tour video, but I did go shopping over Mother's Day weekend and pick up some fun things from a few different greenhouses, and I just thought I would show you guys what I have and where I'm planning on putting some of those things that I haven't planted already. And I'll give you updates on things like asparagus, which is right here and actually popped up a lot since the last video, so I'm really happy about that. So let's go. Let's take a walk in the garden. So I wanted to show you here first. I have these iris that this I think will be their third year here, and they're going to bloom this year finally, which is awesome. I got them from Jung Seeds to test out, and they just hadn't bloomed yet, and they're definitely going to do it this year. Over here was my radishes, and I had radishes and something came through and ate most of them. So I need to replant radishes. You can see the little tops got chewed off of them. So I'm not really sure what was in here. I don't know. It's not a big deal. They weren't growing particularly well either. I think it's just been cold and dry and kind of a weird year. It was hot and then cold, and the weather's just all over the place. My asparagus patch is coming up. I was a little worried last time because it was emptier than I had wanted it to be, but lots of improvement. There's still a few bare spots, but overall this is much closer to what I was expecting it to be like. Over here I have all the lilies popping up, although I bought a mixed color bag of lilies last year and they almost all ended up being orange and yellow, which are two colors that I generally don't like in the garden. So once they bloom and I know what colors they actually are, I'll probably pull those out and find a different spot for them because I'm just not a fan. And then of course, on the last video, this had popped up. It was much smaller and I couldn't remember what it was. After that, I went, oh, I think it's my creeping phlox. And of course, it is my creeping phlox. So that's nice. This clematis is doing really well. No horses have eaten it thus far. And the other clematis has just started popping up over there. So I should have lots of beautiful clematis this year. Of course, I parked the wheelbarrow right in the way. Still nothing in these pots. They're all empty. Rhubarb is looking fantastic. I'm going to harvest that very soon. And then over here are some of the new purchases I'm most excited about. So I have 2 plum trees, a wisteria, a gooseberry, and a fig. Now this plum tree, we're not sure if it's alive, but the greenhouse did say I have a year warranty on it if it does not grow and the future orchard isn't clear yet. I have about a month. So if this doesn't do anything in that amount of time, then I can just take it back. And it was actually a really great price. It was $24 for each of these plum trees. So this one I know is alive. You can see he's happy. This one is debatable. This wisteria, fabulous. He's a little bit unhappy with the cold that we've gotten, but he'll do fine. And this huge plant was $35. I've seen ones the size of this fig tree for $12. So that's a steal. It's almost as tall as me already, obviously. And then the gooseberry, I think that was right about $12. And this, I think, was $6.99. So good prices on everything. I need to get him in a pot today and get him watered. But I had just tucked him in here. So I'm on the hunt for another plum because, like I said, I think this one is probably dead. So I'm going to try to find a third one because, excuse me, plums do require 2 to be able to produce any fruit. So we'll see. These were the only 2 left, which is why I grabbed the mostly dead looking one. Let's see. My kale seeds that I had planted in here, not really coming up. Again, it's been so dry and I haven't watered anything. I grabbed 2 of these pots. They were $9, which I can always use pots, so I couldn't help myself. Sweet peas are coming up nicely. This is the flowering sweet pea. And here I definitely have spinach coming up and a little bit of lettuce. It's so teeny tiny though, again because of the rain. And then I do have some of my eating peas coming up. I need to plant more of those soon. The broccoli is looking wonderful. This trellis I finally got up. I think I need to tighten the bottom one a little bit more. You can see it's kind of bowed out, but I did this by myself, getting the posts in. I had help getting the cattle panels hung up, but so the posts aren't perfectly straight, or you know, whatever. It will serve its purpose. This is where my climbing beans are gonna go, and then I figure I will plant something on this side. I just need to figure out what's a good companion plant for climbing beans. And over here we have, this is another type of creeping phlox that I picked up. I just really love this lavender color anytime I see it somewhere, so I finally grabbed some for myself. And then I found a blue columbine. It's not really opening yet, but you'll know I had the red one from earlier videos, and I have the blue one now, and I would just like to kind of make this whole back area columbine. And then over here, where I want to have like a field of hostas, I've expanded my hosta collection. Yay! Get out of the sun. So it used to just be that hosta and this type, but now I also have this one, which is called like a waterfall hosta, and then I got this little cute one, and this one, and this big one I got from my brother actually. And then I also have this, which this is not a hosta, it's just a shade plant that looks really cool. Over here my pink bleeding heart is coming up nicely, and I think that is the start of one of the 2 white bleeding hearts that I planted, although the other one isn't coming up at all yet. I found these little wood anemones in our woods, and I decided to pull a few up for the shade garden because they're so cute. And I got this lily of the valley from my brother also. Can't really see it because it's windy. Now I know lily of the valley are really invasive and a lot of people absolutely hate them, but they are in this little triangle of shade underneath the elderberries, and there are paths all around it, so I'm just going to keep it contained into this triangle, and any that leave the triangle will be decimated. So that's my plan for those. Oh, and I do have my wild, what is this? Wild geranium? I think that's what it is. I moved some of those into the garden last year as well. Of course, the wild violets are everywhere. Peonies popping up, looking great. I'm hoping that maybe I'll have some blooms this year because these are second year, some of them. Over here are my onions. I had 200, and then my mom gave me a bag of 75 that I think she had used a few from, but not very many. So, and there is a few garlics that snuck in here from last year still. So that's okay. My strawberry patches, despite me taking the time to completely weed and mulch them, and I mean guys, I spent days on this, they are still growing weeds like crazy. It is very disappointing. I don't think I'm going to continue trying to mulch it. I'll come through and weed it a little bit at a time, but I just can't keep spending all of my time weeding the strawberries. I have a huge garden and more of it needs attention than just these 2 plots. So I'll just kind of maintain it as best as I can, and it's going to be a weedy mess again, and it is what it is. My long-term plan was to completely remove the strawberries from the garden and move them into the orchard and berry patch, because this is such a huge space for them right in the middle of the garden. So that just, the fact that I can't keep the weeds out of them increases my desire to want to do that. My plan was to have them all in small beds, like that one that I put at the front earlier this year. That was my test bed, because if that one does well, these will all go into beds, just like that one out front eventually. Ugh, the sun is terrible right now. So I had this, I had this definiem as a blue one that was up by the barn, and then I went and bought this one. Beautiful. I think those will look nice together. And then I also got this guy. I just love this blue color. It's so pretty. And obviously the garlic is fabulous. It's really my favorite thing to grow. Although it's like garlic and wild violet is pretty much what this bed looks like. So many violets. And then I bought this really interesting daylily. Isn't that pretty? So that'll look nice. And I got another type of dianthus. Again, the color of the flowers is beautiful, but I love this kind of bluish green color of the foliage. Blue is my favorite color, if you didn't know, and it pretty much extends to all shades of blue. And then I have a decorative thistle thing. That looks cool, and guess what color it is? Haha, big surprise, right? Can't control myself. And then the last thing, well, I bought a little passion flower. These all go in the garage at night because it's way too cold. And then I had planted some tomatoes and cucamelons, and they came up and were looking lovely, and then all of a sudden they started one by one shriveling up. So I replanted the cucamelons. I'm down to 2 tomato starts that are hanging on. The other 2 died. So if those 2 die, I'm gonna guess it's something in the soil is maybe burning them, because I just used soil that we had here on the property, and maybe I just picked a bad spot to pick it from. But a little bit of a bummer, but it's not the end of the world. And then my mother-in-law gave me a bunch of plant starts, and my mom gave me some zucchinis and a pumpkin. So these were all gifted to me, and I just keeping them in here for now. Most of these, there's parsley in here which could go out right now. I just don't have a spot for it right now, so everything in here is just going in and out. Out during the day to get the sunshine, and in the garage at night where it stays a lot warmer. Alright, that's the garden. I guess I'll show you the strawberry bed out front. This is the strawberry bed out front. It's doing fabulous, and like I said, I think this is what I'm going to do with all of the strawberries that are in the garden eventually. Just have these little beds, because then I could just pick one bed and completely weed it for a day and then move on to the next, instead of having those giant beds that are a little overwhelming. And this is so nice that the pollinators can get in here, but the birds cannot, and I don't have to deal with bird netting. So this is the way of the future. Now for the berry patch and the orchard, I haven't really walked around and shown you guys the space, but so the front of the house is there, and then there's the septic mound, and the previous owners had planted this row of pine trees, because then between the pine trees and the road is just kind of this crazy wilderness. And it's not a huge space. I mean, you can see the road is right there, but it's plenty of space for planting. So we're getting these trees cleared because many of them are dead. if they're not dead, they're diseased. They're, you know, leaning over the septic tank. Some of them are even leaning over the house. So this strip, and then it goes this way, basically an L shape by the house, is all gonna get cleared. And then I think I'm gonna dig up these pine trees and replant them over on the chicken coop side for privacy. So this is the chicken coop side. I think all of those trees are getting cleared as well. So that's our shed, and then the chicken coop is behind that pine tree, and then the barn is over there. So all of this is going to be open as well. So the pine trees can go there for a nice privacy border. And here, this is going to be the orchard. You can kind of see it's a decent amount of space. We have to get it all cleared. I'm not going to walk too far back in here because ticks are everywhere. But we'll be able to look out our front window and see the orchard, and that will be nice. And then over here, which you can see, our neighbor's house is over there. Our property's long and skinny. So we have 11 acres, but it's all long and skinny. So we still have neighbors really close on basically all sides. So this space is going to be cleared, and this is going to be the berry patch. We were trying to decide what we wanted where, but it came down to an orchard is going to look nicer and more organized than a berry patch. So we'd rather have the orchard out the front windows where we can see it, and the berry patch can be tucked into the side, and it can be crazy because we'll have raspberries, blackberries. I mean, there's already blackberries that grow wild here, clearly. We'll just contain them a little more, and then we'll do like grapes and blueberries and all of the things. Plus we'll mix strawberries in amongst all of it. So that's the plan. I'm really hoping we can start doing that soon because it would be nice. And these 3 fruit trees were here before we moved in. We're leaving them. They're too big to move at this point, so they just get to hang out. This apple tree did not have very many flowers on it this year. It had a lot of flowers last year, but it's still kind of a small tree, so it's probably good for it to have a little bit of a rest this year. That's it. That's what's going on in the garden and the orchard and the berry patch, and, you know, the later 2, which do not exist yet, but they will. And I hope you guys will join me for the next video where we will be harvesting rhubarb.